Welcome back to Whisper Hex. Let me ask you something that might ruin the way you feel inside your own home. What if the building you live in isn't haunted? What if it's not a ghost? Not a demon? Not a cursed object? What if the building itself is the monster? Because some structures don't just hold fear. They absorb it. They collect it like moisture. They trap it in walls, in floors, in ceilings. And after years of suffering, panic, and pain, they start to change. They start to remember, and eventually, they start to respond. This is the terrifying idea known as the architecture of fear. Buildings that breed their own living nightmares. And the scariest part, you can't fight a building. You can't run from a hallway that grows longer. You can't escape a door that leads you back inside. And you can't reason with something made of concrete and silence. Because it doesn't need to chase you. It just needs to keep you there. There's an abandoned place in the woods people whisper about called Blackwood Asylum. It was built in the early 1900s, designed to help patients. A place meant for healing. But the design was wrong from the beginning. The hallways were too long. The ceilings were too high. The windows were placed so patients could see daylight, but never see outside. Imagine that torture. You see light every morning, but you never see freedom. The building didn't feel like a hospital. It felt like a machine. A machine designed to crush the mind slowly. And the acoustics inside were even worse. Screams didn't echo normally. They bent. They twisted. They came back warped. So when someone cried for help, it didn't sound like a scream anymore. It sounded like whispering. It sounded like laughter. It sounded like voices you couldn't understand. Patients began losing their grip on reality. They didn't know if they were hearing other people or hearing the building itself. Because when pain stays trapped in one place long enough, it leaves stains you can't see. And Blackwood was soaked in it. Years later, when the asylum was abandoned, explorers broke inside. They expected dust and silence, but the silence in Blackwood wasn't empty. It felt watchful, heavy, like the air had been breathed too many times and never replaced. One explorer said the walls felt warm, not from sunlight, not from electricity, warm like skin. And when he leaned his head against the hallway wall, he felt vibration, a faint pulse, like a heartbeat. He thought it was pipes. He thought it was wind. Until he pressed his ear closer and heard something that froze him completely. Crying, soft crying, not coming from any room, not coming from any hallway. It was coming from inside the wall, as if the building had swallowed voices years ago and never digested them. He stepped back, terrified, and instantly, the crying stopped, like whatever was inside knew it was being listened to. Now, some people call that paranormal. Others call it psychological imprinting. The idea that extreme trauma can leave an echo in a location, like a recording burned into the environment. But what if it's worse than that? What if the building didn't just record the fear? What if it learned from it? Because a structure like Blackwood doesn't just hold memories. It holds patterns. It holds human reactions. It holds panic. It holds hopelessness. And over decades, the building becomes an expert. It understands exactly how to break a person. And that's what makes it dangerous. Not because it's haunted, because it's trained. And Blackwood wasn't the only place like that. There was a wealthy estate called Oakhaven Manor, built on land locals begged the owners not to touch. They said the ground was wrong, that it didn't want a house built on it. But money doesn't believe in warnings. So they built the manor anyway. And for the first few weeks, it was perfect. Beautiful rooms, clean halls, quiet nights, until the family noticed something. The house didn't feel consistent. Some days the hallway felt longer. Some days it felt shorter. The library smelled like damp soil even when it was spotless. Doors would slowly close behind them. Not slam, not dramatically, just quietly, like the house wanted them separated. The youngest child in the family started whispering the same sentence every night. The house is listening. The parents assumed she was imagining things. Until one night the father decided to test it. He stood alone in the kitchen. He looked at the walls and said softly, "If you can hear me, give me a sign." And at first nothing happened. Then behind him, a crack formed in the wall. Slowly, carefully, not like damage, not like old plaster breaking. It looked intentional, like a line being drawn. The crack widened into a curve, and the father realized, shaking, it looked like a smile. And from that crack came a sound. Not a voice, not a whisper, a breath, a long inhale, then a slow exhale, like the house was practicing how to be alive. After that night, the family tried to leave, but leaving wasn't simple, because the house started doing what living things do. It resisted. The front door jammed repeatedly. The car wouldn't start. The phone lines went dead, and the family started feeling exhausted, confused, and strangely attached, like the house was sinking into their minds, like it was rewriting their instincts, making them feel like the outside world was dangerous, and the only safe place was inside. That's the most terrifying kind of trap. Not chains, not locks, but comfort that feels forced. A prison that convinces you it's home. And that's the truth behind these sentient structures. A ghost can haunt you. A demon can chase you. But a building? A building can outlive you. It can wait. It can study generations. It can collect fear for decades until it becomes something else entirely. Something aware. Something hungry. And once a building learns how humans fear, it can customize nightmares. If you're afraid of darkness, it kills the lights. If you're afraid of being trapped, it seals doors. If you're afraid of silence, it removes every sound until your own breathing feels too loud. If you're afraid of being watched, it makes you feel eyes in every corner, and you'll never prove it. Because a building doesn't need to move. It only needs to shift reality around you, just slightly, until you break. So the next time you walk into an abandoned hospital, an old basement, a silent school building, or even a house that feels off, don't just look for shadows. Look at the layout. Look at the hallways. Look at the doors. Because maybe it isn't haunted. Maybe it's awake. Maybe the walls aren't holding ghosts. Maybe the walls are growing them. And maybe the building isn't trying to scare you. Maybe it's feeding. If you want a full long video on these terrifying sentient structures, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment right now. Because Whisper Hex is where fear lives in plain sight. And tell me, have you ever been inside a building that felt alive?